Welcome to another episode of Baking with Ken. Today we're going to talk about no-knead bread. Now, this is a bit of a misnomer, I think, because it may be called no-knead bread, but after you've had it, you're going to need more. Okay, so it's a really simple recipe. There's only 4 ingredients: water, flour, salt, and instant yeast. So I've put together some of these ingredients here, and so we put the salt in the bowl, we put the yeast in the bowl. Now this is a double recipe, so I've done 3 teaspoons of salt. I've done a half a teaspoon and a little bit of instant yeast, and I'm going to put in 6 cups of flour total. Now this recipe we've found gives you a little bit more crunchiness to the bread after it's toasted particularly. And so we're adding a 1/3 whole wheat flour to 2/3 all-purpose flour. And the whole wheat flour also gives you just a little bit more fiber if that's a concern as you're getting a little older, like my cameraman Shaky over here. Right, Shaky? So we'll put in the whole wheat flour, and then we'll put in the all-purpose flour. So we did 2 cups of whole wheat, and we're going to put in 4 cups of all-purpose. And it just, here we go. Okay, that's about it. Now this is a really forgiving recipe, so measure a little bit, but don't be too obsessive about it. You can throw in the flour. Now I like to mix up the dry ingredients before we add the water, so just give it a stir. Make sure that the salt and the whole wheat is mixed in with the yeast and the all-purpose flour, and that just makes a better mixture once you're starting to get it all together. So,
could you say a little bit more about the yeast?
Well, it's instant yeast, so you don't have to start it or anything. You can buy little packages of it. I happen to have a little, drum of it here that's lasted me almost a year for $4.58. It expires in 2027. So, it's a big investment, but, what are you here for? So, we get that all done up, and then we need to do 3 cups, because we're doing a double recipe. It's usually 1.5 cups, but we're doing 3 cups of water, room temperature water, not too cold, not too hot. Okay, so okay, 3 cups of water. I like to put a little divot in here just to make sure that everything gets mixed up good. And so you just pour the water in, and that's that. Take your fork and give it a stir. And what you want to do is just slowly mix it all together and come up with a dry, kind of ragged mixture of all the 4 ingredients. This is particular bread. It's a little different than say the sourdough bread or some other breads that you may have made. It sits and rises for a long time, and we'll revisit it tomorrow morning. It's now 10 to 1 Pacific time, and we'll have a look at it about 7:30 tomorrow morning, and then we'll let it rise again for another couple of hours, and then we'll cook it. So its long proofing stage is one of the reasons why it's so good, and it also that's how the gluten and everything gets dealt with, right, Shaky?
Well, yeah. I was going to ask about why it's a no-knead bread, and it's because of that long rise, isn't it, Chef Ken?
That's exactly right, Shaky. You get a long rise. So you've got a really kind of rough mixture of dough here, and what you want to do is make sure that you don't have a lot of flour sitting in the bottom that hasn't been picked up into the dough. If you need a little bit more water, just a little bit of water, you can put that in, and it'll help put everything together. But you just don't want to have a bunch of flour sitting in the bottom of your bowl. Once you've got this done, the next step is pretty basic. You take a normal dish towel, tea towel, depending on which country you live in. Give it a little cover up, give it a little pat, and say night night, and away it goes. And you just put it in a nice, quiet, warm part of your kitchen, and it'll sit there until tomorrow morning. At which point we will get back to you, and we will unveil what it looks like and what the next steps are. So, hope that was not too complicated. It's 4 ingredients. You mix them all together, and you let it sit for several hours, about 18 hours, which seems like a lot, but it isn't. Okay, that's about it. From here, say goodbye, Shaky. Goodbye, Shaky. And we'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye. Good morning. It's 20 to 8, and the bread's just waking up. So here's what we've got in our bowl from yesterday. Now this has risen a lot, and it will rise again as we do a little second proofing here. Now, so a couple of steps. You get your bake pan, whatever whatever you might be baking on your surface, and it needs to have some flour on it. So I usually just take a tablespoon of flour and spread it around, because you're just going to manipulate this a bit. Now, the thing about this bread is the less you do with it, the better it is. So you don't want to knead it. You don't want to push all the air out. You want to keep the air inside so that it's there when you're finished baking, because that's where the flavor is. It's in the air. So I'm taking, I've got this little thing here, the scraper, that just takes the dough out of my pan, and Shaky's moving in here to get a better angle. Good morning, Shaky. How are you today? A little shaky? Oh, well. I told you not to drink that much last night, didn't I? Okay. So you got this on your surface, and so you put a little bit more flour on top, and just sort of spread her around a bit, and and then we're going to just move this around a bit and make it into a loaf-like surface, and then we're going to leave it alone. We're going to cover it back up with our dish towel, tea towel, depending on which language preference you're using today, and say goodnight. And we'll come back. It's 7:45, so we'll be back in about an hour and a half to see what happens in our second proof. Okay, we'll see you then. Bye. Okay, back. We've been proofing this for about an hour and a half, which is usually enough time. And we'll just do the big reveal here, so you can see that the dough has expanded a certain amount. And keep in mind that this is 2 loaves. So in a little while, we're going to split the loaf and get it all ready. But the first steps are the next step is preheating your oven. And you have to preheat your oven. I do it to 475. The recipe says 450, but I think that depends on the kind of pan that you're using. So if you're using, say, a Dutch oven like this, which we've used before, it's got a thinner kind of wall, and you know, it conducts heat in a different way. I happen to have, because in the pandemic you need your proper accessories, I have French loaf pans that are beautiful pottery, and you know, they really retain heat very well. And they're so I'm doing this at 475 because it's really a little more compact. The important thing is you've got to have the lid on for the first 25 minutes of the baking, because it creates the steam that's created by the baking, helps to cure the bread and do everything else that is part of the magic, as they say. So put this in. You want to preheat your pans with the lid on. And I just preheat them for as long as it takes for the oven to get to 475. You know, that's always worked for me. And the recipe, which we will be including in this video, the recipe says that you need to preheat them for half an hour. I think that's a waste of energy, so we don't do that. But we'll be back shortly to put the dough into the containers, into the pans, and we'll show you how that works, and then we'll keep going on through the morning. Okay, that's it. Thanks, Shaky. And we're back. And we're ready to take the pans out of the oven and put the dough into the pans for one of the last 2 steps. So make sure you've got good oven mitts. It's hot in there. It's a little bit of choreography needed here. If you're choreographically challenged, you'll work it out eventually and figure out what the few steps that you need to take to make sure that the movement of the dough into the pans is as efficient as possible. So remember that this is 2 loaves. So what we need to do is we need to sort of roughly split it in half and get your loaves. And what we're going to do is just shape this up a little bit and make it into a nice little loaf of bread, and get ready to pop it in. So all you do is you can use one of these and just scoop it up and put it in, and scoop it up and put it in, and put your tops on.
Question, Chef Ken.
Yes, Shaky.
If you were using a Dutch oven, for example, that you showed us earlier,
Yeah.
would you shape it into a loaf, or would you shape it into a moule? I.e. round.
You know, it doesn't really matter, because the bread does seem to find its own shape in the container, so it will expand to form the shape. So it doesn't really matter. You know, I'm assuming that you would probably make it into more of a bowl than you would a loaf if you were using a circular pan. But other than that, not really. Okay, so you need to put your timer on for about 25 minutes and just let it cook away, and we'll come back in 25 minutes, see what happens. Okay, just a short step here. We're going to check on our bread. It's been in for 25 minutes or so. And the next step is to take the tops off and let it cook without. And this is where we are right now. So it's starting to bake up and look pretty good. So put it in there for about 13 to 15 minutes. You can always look in the window or open it up and check on how toasty it's getting, but you know, it's up to you what you want to do. So,
but definitely 15 minutes.
Yeah, well, close to 15 minutes, yeah.
Right.
It's just the final baking process too. So we'll check it again in about 15 and final product will emerge. Okay, that's it. The big reveal. We'll just take these out. And here we have a lovely loaf of bread.
Those look beautiful,
On the
Chef.
small side, but this one will be bigger.
Whoa. Whoops. Shaky.
Okay, shaky. Get too excited. All right. There we go.
All right, all right, all right.
No Knead bread.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So you let it sit for however long. Obviously, don't cut it when it's this hot because it's still cooking. One of the nice things about it is you'll hear it cracking. Hear the top crack as it cools down. And it's best as toast, we have found, and it's really good first thing in the morning. So hope you enjoy it, and we'll send the recipe along as well. And that's it from Shaky, my stealthy camera person and general tech wizard, and moi. See you again. Bye bye.